Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Unorthodox Investor. And I've been wondering for a while, what is the world's smallest stock exchange? So I put in a little bit of research to find out. One of the first ones that came up was the Cambodian Stock Exchange. Now, I've been to Laos and Cambodia, and I thought that Laos was the smallest, but it turns out Cambodia had been the smallest stock exchange for a long time. As of 2016, the Cambodian Stock Exchange had a market value of 103 million US dollars. Yes, 103 million. No billions, no trillions in there. And today, the Cambodian Stock Exchange now has 7 companies in total. In June 2021, the Cambodian Stock Exchange reached a market cap of $2.4 billion, which was, I think, the highest it's ever been. And as of today, that stock market capitalization is round about $1.75 billion, with only 7 companies. So, for way of comparison, the New York Stock Exchange has a total of 2,578 companies, and the Nasdaq has even more than that at 3,788 companies. So it puts it into perspective how small the Cambodian Stock Exchange really is. And I'm going to put a list of those companies just here so you can see those 7 companies that are on the Cambodian Stock Exchange, in case you guys are interested. But that isn't the smallest. So after doing a little bit more research, I found out that it's Myanmar's stock exchange which is the smallest in the world currently. And it's called the Yangon Stock Exchange, the YSE. And it has a current market capitalization of around about $400 million. So to put that into perspective for any UK investors, that is around about the same size as Boohoo.com is at the moment. And Boohoo, if you know, is listed on the AIM, or the Alternative Investment Market. So really on the small side of things. The Yangon Stock Exchange also has 7 stocks, like the Cambodian Stock Exchange, but they are of course much smaller in value. So what are those companies that are on the Yangon Stock Exchange? Well, we've got the very first one that was listed was called the First Myanmar Investment, which is a real estate industry investment company. The second was listed in 2016 alongside the first, the Myanmar, can't even pronounce that, Thilawa Ses Holdings, which is real estate development. The third, which was listed also in 2016, is Myanmar Citizens Bank, so in the banking industry. In 2017, First Private Bank Limited, another commercial banking industry company, was listed. And then in 2018, that was followed by TMH, Telecoms Public, which is a telecoms company, of course. 2 more were to follow, one in 2020 on the 28th of May, my brother's birthday. That is called Everflow River Group. That's a logistics company. And then there was a final one listed in 2021 in June, and that is Amata Holdings, which is a hotel business. And that brings the Yangon Stock Exchange up to 7 companies in total. And it's notoriously difficult to find any sort of prices. I found a price chart, so I'm going to pop it up right here so you can see what's happened. And actually, so I'm recording this video in November 2022. I don't know when you guys are watching this, hopefully soon. But you can see that in September and October, there's been quite an uptick, about 20% that the Yangon Stock Exchange has risen. So that's quite exciting for the country. And actually, it's up year to date because of that. So that's quite good. Research is virtually impossible to do in the Yangon Stock Exchange. I found a website. It is called KTZRH, however you want to pronounce that. I'm not sure if you can pronounce that in one word, but it has a research page which I had a look at, and the last entry is July 17th, 2019, and it just goes back in time from then, and it's got things like company number 1 which is company number 1 is the first Myanmar investment company. And the piece of news says improving profit from bank and real estate. And then a couple of lines down, back in January 11th, 2018, it says for company number 2, H1, so half year 2017-2018 results declined 47.9%. So that's not so good, but it seems very sporadic, this information that we're getting. So it's actually quite difficult to do any sort of research, or at least what I can see anyway. Another thing that I found quite interesting was there is a Facebook page. So the Yangon Stock Exchange has a Facebook page with 260,000 likes. So it's quite well followed in the grand scheme of things. Probably more followed than there are actual investors in the Yangon Stock Exchange. And there's some interesting posts as well on there. So one of the most recent posts says how to resell your stock. So after you've purchased it, how do you sell it? So it's given a wee bit of advice on how you do that. And there are a couple of posts on how to do block trades if you're investing lots of money, and giving general updates on the closing price of the stock exchange, which is also quite interesting. So it just shows how sort of basic stock exchanges used to be, and how there are countries in the world that just don't have this. In fact, a lot of countries in the world just don't have this, because if you're a big company and you want to get decent funding, you will go to a big stock exchange like the New York Stock Exchange, or even the NASDAQ, or even places in Europe like the FTSE 100, or the DAX, or the CAC, which is French. So any of these sort of stock exchanges have got better money flows and better investment potential. So that's the Yangon Stock Exchange. It's the smallest one in the world at $400 million market cap. Let's just see how it goes. Apparently it's always very good to invest in young, sort of growing stock markets, but it just all depends on how things are. That was a total ramble. So that's it for the Yangon Stock Exchange. Hopefully you learned a lot about that. It's really interesting to kind of see how these new stock exchanges form and what happens to them in the future. So you heard it here first. The Yangon Stock Exchange was at $400 million. Let's see, who knows, in 10 years time, maybe it'll be a China. You never know. See you in the next video.